friends, we're live on Beyond the Bell, and that music, of course, is brought to you by this guy, Ryan Welton, Ryan Welton Music. Good to see you again, man.
Hey, good to see you for one last Beyond the Bell, brought to you by Every Kid Counts Oklahoma.
We are, and it's a pretty exciting Saturday as we start to wrap up this series. Is this 12? We
This is
completing
number
our
12. Believe it or not, we've done 12. We did 6 in the spring and 6 in the fall.
It was really kind of funny. When we started on this, there were some people that were, "What are you going to talk about? Is it going to be political?" And so, I mean, I'm not hearing any of that now. Okay,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Not at all. As you and I like to say, we are in the learning business, and talking about education, we've learned everything from what's happening in aviation education to today what we're going to talk about. And it's really, this is perfect that this is episode 12, because this is connecting the dots, helping people who are already in their careers, students in businesses, put it together. It's kind of continuing education, but it's a topic that is, one of our guests said, boy, you've been living under a rock if you haven't heard of CareerTech in Oklahoma.
That's exactly right. So we're going to get right to it. We're going to introduce our guest this morning, Laura Morris. Good morning, Laura. How are you? You're muted up there, and if you could scoot a little to the right there. While you're doing that, I'm going to bring in Chef Gabriel Lewis, Francis Tuttle Culinary School out there. It's really I've been there, by the way. It's a really, really great program at Francis Tuttle Technology School of Culinary Arts. Good to see you, Gabriel.
Likewise.
All right. And here's Laura Morris, who's like,
I'm back.
You are back. Thanks so much for. She works with the Health Careers Education Division out there at CareerTech. And then, of course, last but not least, my good friend, no stranger to this program, and people that have watched my Newsline content over the years, Dr. Lee Denny, over there at CareerTech, interim director. I just fully expect we'll be seeing her for a lot of years. Good to see you, Dr. Denny.
Nice to be here. Thank you for having us.
We do want to say that for folks that watch this program, there will be, if you're south of the Red River, there will be disturbing images this morning as we get ready for that 2:30 kickoff. Sooners like me know how to do this. And right now, if you look at Dr. Denny, the pistol's firing, but also we're going to teach all of our cowboy friends this. This drives them bananas. Okay.
I don't know. It's kind of hard,
just drives them nuts. So much that they've tried to criminalize it, but guess what? It ain't working. So best of luck to Coach Gundy, the Cowboys, who today will try to win the Southeast Conference title. Okay, that's just what they're
doing. I love it.
And well, there's bedlam. I mean, I'm not going to go quite that far, but good to have you all. And we're talking CareerTech today. One of the great. It's not a hidden gem. It is the gem. So much going on. Ryan, take it away.
Well, I just thought we would start, as we talked about in the pre-show. Just everybody, let's start with you, Dr. Denny, talking about what CareerTech is. Pretend that somebody they've been living under a rock and they've never heard of this program.
Oh gosh, thank you so much for that question. You have to go back to the 60s when Francis Tuttle, who was head of our CareerTech system in Oklahoma, had a vision. And he melded his vision with Governor Dewey Bartlett at the time to create a system that would just be the pipeline to the workforce. And so what he's created is unique. I feel like we're number one. And in fact, I know we're number one in the way we deliver CareerTech services here in Oklahoma, because we start very early. We try to identify the kids that would be great for our programs even as early as middle school. And then we capture them usually in the 11th and 12th grade. There's some programs that get the 10th graders. And so we have secondary students, and we give them an opportunity to get a career and a skill that they can absolutely graduate high school and go right into the workforce. That being said, they can also go on to higher ed, or they can stay in the CareerTech system and continue to foster their career in what they've chosen to do as a skill. I have a barking dog. I apologize. I could yell at him, but that wouldn't sound very good. He hears you all talking, and so he'll stop in just a minute. One of the beauties of our system is that we have 29 tech centers around the state with 61 campuses. Just one second. I'm back. Trying to get him to be quiet. With 61 sites, and that's our flagship programs around the state. But what people also need to know is that we're in over 400 high schools with our, I'll start here, Laura, for your sake, our HOSA programs, which are health careers. Of course, everyone's familiar with FA. A lot of people are familiar with FCCLA. We also have STEM programs in high schools and business programs in high schools. So those are all over the state in 400 schools. We also are in our prison system with our skill centers. And so when people have paid their debt to society and they've got that one last year of incarceration, we put them into a skill center where we teach them. We have about 12 different skills that we teach, and they can graduate and have a job and a skill that provides them a living wage. And doing that, they change their playpen, they change their play toys, and they change their playmates, and they can actually provide for a family. We're very involved in adult basic literacy around the state and dropout prevention. And the last thing that we are good at, more than anything, is our industry partnerships. We help business and industry skill up, retool, get the customized training that they need to do to be successful in whatever their chosen business is. And you know, as I do, as the digital age is here and we change all the time, there's a lot of opportunity to upskill. One more thing, and then I'll be quiet. I know you want someone else. We've been penalized, or we've been criticized quite a bit lately for not having programs such as plumbing and HVAC. Well, we're actually switching those types of programs over to our business and industry area, in that people realize they need a job. They look at plumbing and they look at HVAC, and they get a job with a big plumbing firm or HVAC, and then those employers send them back to us for that critical training in plumbing, HVAC, and some of those. Still teach constructions, masonry, electricity, things like that.
Yeah,
that's my short answer.
Yeah, I had a plumber over yesterday who was talking about all the time they spend with. It seems we lost the connection for just a second, but yes, that sounds exciting. Laura, could you tell me about your part of this? We're going to get to you, Chef, in just a moment because your story's fascinating. But Laura, tell us what you do with CareerTech and what your specific focus is.
Okay, I would love to. Again, my name's Laura Morris, and I'm the program manager for health careers at the State Department of CareerTech. I've been in this position about 20 years, a little bit over now. But what I always tell people, I work with teachers across the state who are healthcare professionals, and they've never been a teacher before. And I help them learn how to be a teacher. That's again, the short answer, but we do have about 24 different program areas, everything from CNA, and that's certified nurse assistant, licensed practical nurse, et cetera, to physical therapy assistant, occupational therapy assistant, dental hygiene programs. And a number of those programs across our state are things that we partner with higher education on. So we feel like one of the things, especially our adult programs, one of the things we do really well is we do a great job of providing the technical training aspect when there's a career that requires someone to have a degree. Typically, we'll partner with a college and we will do the technical skill of being an occupational therapy assistant, and they will do the general education requirements. So it's been a wonderful opportunity for both higher ed and CareerTech, when we're super proud of all of those programs. I also have programs in, like Dr. Denny said, in comprehensive high schools, I don't have very many. I have about 11, but I have some on a waiting list, and I would love to have more high school programs. We are so lucky in Oklahoma to have such a strong technology center basis. And so our technology centers do most of the hands-on training for our high school students and again, adults. But so most of our students come from either from their comprehensive high school and will come to our programs about 3 hours a day, and then they bus back to their home school. And so within that 1 year time frame, we try and get them an industry certification.
Wow. And speaking of connecting with students at the high school level, Chef Gabriel Lewis, you got started in this business in high school. Tell us how that happened. How you got interested in food. I'm interested in food, but not at the level that you are. How did that get started, and how were you made aware of CareerTech?
So my interest in food came from what I like to tell people are my three matriarchs. So my mother, my grandmother, and my aunt. Very food-centric family. You know, every Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, any significant holiday or event was food-centric. And so I was fortunate enough to be exposed to that at a very young age and realized that I had kind of an interest, and that interest sparked a passion. And so I always was kind of on the search for something that I could do, whether I was a middle schooler or if I was a high schooler. I just wanted to do something that would allow me more time in the kitchen, apart from peeling potatoes and changing trash bags. So, you know, I was a student at Putnam City North High School, and I believe Francis Tuttle had come in for a CareerTech Day my sophomore year of high school. And they kind of gave me the whole rundown of, hey, our new Rockwell campus has this beautifully renovated kitchens and labs. And I almost lost my mind. So I did everything that I could possible to enroll. It was an immediate thing. I came home, talked to my parents, and they were very quick to say, you know what, you have been very serious about food. It's been kind of the obsession, to say the least, and you need to pursue this. So we definitely think you should do it, and you should just go for it. And so I did everything that I could to get into that program, because I believe at the time there was quite a waiting list as well. And I was fortunate enough to get off of that waiting list and hop right into the program.
That sounds fantastic. And tell me about, you told me in the pre-show, what are you doing these days?
So now I am a private chef here in Oklahoma City. I've been fortunate enough to take my career outside of the state as well, and travel to cook for people of influence. You know, I've cooked in about 5 or 6 different states, with 2 more on the docket before the year ends, with several pop-ups in different restaurants, whether they're locally or not, as well as starting a somewhat of a residency at the Crown Room off of VCD's, or behind VCD's off of Western. And I've even had the opportunity the past few months to cook for, you know, one of our Thunder players. I was fortunate enough to take over for Sylvester Stallone's private chef in Tulsa when he came to Oklahoma City, and I was his private chef for about a month.
So this is huge. This is big time. This isn't small scale stuff. Dr. Denny, these opportunities. Could you talk about CareerTech and how you're making more students aware of this, whether they be just, how are you spreading the word to the schools?
Well, to the schools, we have a great way to do that. I think 3 or 4 years ago, the legislature instituted something called ICAP, which is an individual plan where kids can kind of assess what their gifts and graces are and where they might want to go. And then actually, we're very dependent on school counselors to present our programs to our kids. All the tech centers have a day for sophomores that come and tour the tech center that their sending school is a part of. And through these tours, kids get to see the great opportunities that we have at our CareerTechs. And then through the counselors working with their high school schedules, we make sure that we get the kids we need. Occasionally, a student will need one more academic credit. And so our tech centers have academic classes. It's basically science and math, those classes that they need, and so they can graduate on time. We also, something I didn't say a minute ago that I have to say, we have so many rural schools in Oklahoma that are great schools, but there may be a child there that wants to take advanced calculus, and they're just too small of a system for only one child to have that calculus teacher. So we actually have academies through Project Lead the Way, Biomed Academy, and a pre-engineering academy that allows these kids to take these higher level courses and then be successful for what they want to do after high school, whether it's stay in the CareerTech system or move on to higher ed. And we have lots of partnerships with our higher ed schools across the state. We're here for students, and we want to make students successful, and we want to be the pipeline to the workforce.
Okay, and so I approach this from somebody who, I'm just trying to put myself in the position of somebody who doesn't know anything about this program. What would you say are your 3 or 4 most popular programs for students who are in high schools right now?
Oh gosh. Well, we do automotive, and I'm going to let Laura ask that in a minute. But one of the things that we do that I didn't even know we did until recently was something called power sports. So anything that's not a car or a truck driving, motorcycles, boats, 4-wheelers, anything that's, and so our kid, one other thing I have to add, then I'll turn it over. I promise you guys will be muting me. I'm so excited about CareerTech. One other thing we do is we have student organizations called CTSOs, CareerTech Student Organizations. And these are not extracurricular activities. These are co-curricular activities. So kids are highly, highly encouraged. So, vocation, the easiest one to talk about is vocational agriculture in our high schools. All those kids are also members of the FFA chapter at their school. So through this, our kids get leadership skills. They learn their soft skills that so many employers say that we're dying to have. And they really become great future citizens of the state. So through these CTSOs, they compete at the local level, the state level, and even the national level. And we have lots of national winners. And I say that to say Central Tech had a national, they won nationally in power sports. And so Harley Davidson gave them a brand new spanking huge orange Harley Davidson that the students can work on. So Laura, why don't you fill in where I've left off?
Well, I wouldn't say you left anything out. I would just reiterate to the to the question of what's most popular. I can tell you in my programs, it would be our high school health careers. And with that particular program, they get a core of instruction that's based on national standards for health science. And then they can choose one of many opportunities. Most of our schools offer long-term care nurse aid. So that's many of our students are interested in nursing. And so that gets their feet wet. It also, Dr. Denny's a vet, my background's athletic training, and we have no desire to be nurses, but we love healthcare professions. And we do think it's great for our schools when they can offer that variety as well. So I have programs that teach sports medicine. We have vet assisting. There's a number of different opportunities depending on the school you go to. And so much of it depends on our clinical sites or preceptor sites. So where is it that we can go out and learn those skills? If I were going to be teaching vet assisting and my teacher is a nurse, she's not going to know the ins and outs of being a vet, but she does know how to work with the vet office down the street to provide an experience for a student so that they can learn those skills they need, not only the hands-on skills, but again, the professional skills, the leadership skills, like we talked about with student organizations.
So speaking of the specific skills, Chef Gabriel, what you had all of this interest in food. Could you talk about some of the things specifically in the curriculum, the curricula, if you will, that you got from CareerTech? What were some of the things, and maybe were there some things that you were surprised about that they were able to go in that deeply?
Absolutely. I talk very, very heavily about the CareerTech system in Oklahoma because I truly believe that it set me it set me up for success in a way that I would not have envisioned myself for at least another decade. You know, it in chef terms, it gave me my mise en place. It means it put everything in its place and gave me the prep work to succeed in this next recipe of life. So I really embody the CareerTech system, and having been a product of it, specifically to the culinary program. I really, you know, just thought, oh, we're going to be learning how to prepare this, or learn about these knife cuts, or learn about these knives. And my chefs went into everything from understanding timing, being a great multitasker, understanding the financial side of food, and understanding that, you know, your margins are what keep you in business, not your creativity. It's a combination of both, and being able to be a chef as well as a business owner, a marketer. Having all of these combined skill sets taught me how to build a resume, you know, and not just that, they really fixated on some of the niche skills that a lot of people don't think about when it comes to, you know, a high schooler learning. You know, we learned everything how to do, from like laminated doughs, or making danishes, to you know, doing these decorative cakes, and having the opportunity to, you know, do things like skills in FCCLA that allowed us to take that a step further and get more quality time with our instructors and chefs, that then had us coming in. You know, they said, hey, we're going to be here at 5 o'clock in the morning. And that's very practical for my industry. We start early, we end late, and we do it all again the next day, whether we're cut, burned, or burnt out. You know, and that was a very realistic approach to how we were instructed and how we were allowed to pursue our passions. You know, if we got cut in the kitchen, we, you know, understood what to do. We were taught how to apply first aid to ourselves. We were taught how to identify things that could be a risk factor in the kitchen, how to prevent injury for another person, how to communicate verbally and non-verbally. You know, there were a lot of, as you mentioned, the soft skills that instructors are phenomenal at bringing out of the students. And I speak to that quite a bit with anyone that ever asks whether they're doing a pop-up in Oklahoma City, the metropolitan area, the state in general. I always suggest they go check CareerTech for help in whatever industry it is, because I wholeheartedly believe that that is the most structured and sound way to get, you know, skilled labor in the state.
Well, it's you put a chill on the back of my neck when you started talking about margins, because that's every business on earth. It's not about revenue. It is about revenue versus cost. It is about margin. And it's very impressive that the program talks about that as well. And speaking of businesses, Dr. Denny and Laura, we've talked about students and how this applies to students, but there's lots of value for businesses also. What are you communicating to businesses, and how they can benefit, and how are they taking advantage of CareerTech?
Well, I'll start. We have a whole business and industry division at the agency, and then every CareerTech center, the 29 CareerTech centers, not at all their sites, but most of their sites have different opportunities for businesses to come. One of the things that we do is every program at CareerTech has what's called an advisory committee. And so those committees let our schools know what's coming up, what maybe is no longer important to their industry or their business, and how they can better prepare our students to be workforce ready when they come out of a CareerTech. They also have an opportunity to, several of them have what the old-fashioned business incubators, where they have a space for up to 2 years for people to start an entrepreneurial type of business. But also some of them are getting into the business accelerator business, where they're not necessarily giving them space to start their business, but they're giving them the tools that might otherwise be too costly for a startup business to invest in, such as legal advice, accounting advice, cash flow, like Gabriel said, Chef Gabriel, I'm so proud of him, and things like that. So we do customized training, we do safety training, fireman training. The list is endless. And as people, one of the things you were going to ask me, so I'm just going to segue to it. You know, about a month ago, through these ARPA dollars, not only ARPA dollars given to the state, but also from the president, the COVID has taught us that we must be connected with the internet, and internet's no longer a luxury. It's more or less a utility, just like gas, electric, water, and sewer. And so with all these ARPA dollars, well, who's going to train the workforce? And so we were asked how fast we could set up programs to train people to either bury, hang, or build towers for fiber across the state. And so we've done that, and we have about 16 tech centers that are willing to take the challenge. And some of them feel like they can be set up by next semester, and some it'll be next fall. Of course, it's going to take maybe a while to get the ARPA dollars, but we consider ourselves flexible for business and industry, agile, and able to almost turn on a dime. Sometimes we have a little trouble finding instructors, but we can almost turn on a dime and change how we train workforce so that it meets the needs of what's going on in Oklahoma.
And Laura, do you find the same thing with hospitals? Are there any differences in how you work with them?
Not really, no. Advisory committees, personal relationships, like I said, clinical experiences, those are all ways that we are deeply connected. You mentioned about business and industry, and I wanted to share something that happened almost a couple years ago now during the pandemic. And we all know that there's a healthcare workforce shortage. Mm-hmm. And it's about to get way worse than anyone's ever thought of, because we knew all the baby boomers were going to be retiring. But what we didn't count on was a pandemic that put healthcare providers under a great deal of stress. Mm-hmm. And there's so many that have left the profession. So trying to backfill, trying to create new nurses, new therapists, whatever the area is a huge challenge. One thing we did, and it wasn't the Masonic Charity Foundation, I have to tell you, we have a program called Nurse Refresher, and that is specifically, we're in partnership with the Board of Nursing and also with OU College of Nursing. And the program allows for the program in general costs $2,000, which seems very steep, I know. It's run through our short-term adult programs in about 10 schools. And the fantastic thing is it's been revamped to where it is cheaper than it was. The students take an online course, they register with CareerTech, and then they get enrolled in an online nursing course at OU. It is a competency-based course, so that means they start with the test, and if they're competent in that area, then they can go on to the next module. So you don't have to, if you've learned all this information before, you don't have to relearn it. So I need to interject that the Nurse Refresher is actually for people who either never took their boards or they took them and did not pass. And so this is, instead of starting someone from scratch and going through another year or 2-year or 4-year program, this allows them to basically come in and challenge the competencies, and then they can sit for the exam again. So after the students finish with their didactic program at OU, they come back to our technology centers and they perform skills check. So we know that, yes, they do know how to provide a specific patient care skill. And as soon as that check is over, they have the option now. Most of our schools are doing what we call virtual clinicals. And this has been huge because it's hard to find clinical space, especially for nursing across the state. And so there is a program that is simulation based. The students go through that curriculum and they make critical thinking decisions, and it's all monitored by an instructor. And then as soon as they feel like, yep, they know what they're doing, then they go ahead and recommend them to the Board of Nursing to sit for their board. So what was fantastic, and we would love your listeners to know, in case someone out there wants to help get nurses in the pipeline, we put 200 nurses back to work. The Masonic Charity Foundation called and they said, we're thinking about buying respirators or things that the hospitals might need. But we heard about this program and we would love to be your financial partner and scholarship 100 people. So they gave us $200,000 to put 100 nurses back to work. And that is huge. We haven't found another person that would say, hey, we'll match that. But it was phenomenal. We still get phone calls every week about, can we get that scholarship? And it's like, oh, those scholarships have been gone for over a year now. I wish we could. But so when you talk about turning on a dime or being able to provide training for the people who need it, it's not always about starting from ground zero. Sometimes people just need to be refreshed. They might need some additional skills training, a certification or two. And that's something that our tech centers do a wonderful, wonderful job of.
Well, if there happen to be businesses out there who might be willing to match those dollars, I mean, they might stumble upon this. It's a great opportunity, as you noted, for people who are in mid-career, businesses who need to be matched to skilled labor, but also people who are in mid-career. Chef Gabriel, does the mid-career workforce development, does that apply to people who are in the food business? Are there opportunities there for somebody who maybe, I mean, you have taken your career to the next level and above, but what about somebody who has been working in the business for a while, but would, really like to do bigger things?
For my experience, I've come across a lot of people that have gone through CareerTechs that have been in industry. They've been cooking in kitchens, they've been line cooks, they've been dishwashers, they've been prep cooks. They may even work on pastry side, but they don't have the structured education as far as just the practical experience. And a lot of them go in there, and if they are, that proficient and show a level of competency, the one thing I love about the instructors and the chefs there is that they will just turn up the heat. If they're like, okay, you're competent in this, well, I'm going to teach you the second level or the third level, the fourth level. I'll take it as far as my skills allot me to. And if I don't know it, I'll learn it, then I'll teach it to you. And that's how they challenge themselves as well as chefs and instructors, is that they allow their students to go to the next level if they're proficient in it. And so I see that quite a bit going to Francis Tuttle. I personally pull people when I do private events, local charity events or things like that. I always go to Francis Tuttle and I say, hey, who do you have that is willing to, jump in the kitchen and get practical experience? And they always have, 3 to 5 names. They have me come in and talk to the AM and PM classes there. They really do set their students up for having those opportunities to, really engage that way. And if they, again, don't have that structured education and going back to it, they will turn up the heat as far as they need to in order to make sure someone is successful and get the food safety licenses and things that they need very, very quickly. And it's phenomenal. Funny enough, I'm actually part of the advisory board for Francis Tuttle's Culinary. And we had a meeting last week that spoke about the Employ Francis Tuttle and the pipeline into local businesses. And a lot of the businesses had already had interest in trying to get some of the students there. I know Hal Smith Group was asking for 30, bright and excited chefs or prospects just to run through, their restaurant group. And it's a beautiful thing because it really does open up these opportunities. I didn't necessarily have the direct pipeline when I was going through the program, but I always had businesses that came in with interest to try to find and suss that out. And the instructors did everything in their power to make sure we were, ready for that opportunity. But they also allowed us the ability to kind of challenge ourselves and go after that opportunity if it was presented to us.
Oh, I just checking in. For those of you who are wondering, it's 10:38 beat Texas time, and you're watching Beyond the Bell. By the way, so I want to, this is a great conversation, Ryan, and I've really enjoyed listening. I do want to say this. For those who want to know more about Chef Gabriel, you go to chefgabeonline.com and learn that story. And whenever you work with world-renowned chefs like Aaron Sanchez and some guy named Gordon Ramsay, and then you had your time in New Orleans. A friend of mine's, Tab Singleton, down at Broken Bow, who's got Fat Tab's Barbecue, by the way, the best in the state, who was working with a chef down in New Orleans. I believe his last name is Lagasse, something along those lines. It's really kind of cool that we've got this pipeline of talent, like folks like you, Chef Gabriel and Chef Tab, leave the state, go do these great things with these world-renowned people, and come back to Oklahoma? How come?
You know, from a younger age, it was always, oh, I need to get out and go. And I think that's a lot of, people in their teenage years. They want to break the status quo that they know and kind of go out and venture and gain life experience. The thing about life is that it teaches you very quickly where home is and where the opportunities lie and where you can best utilize your gifts or your education. For me, traveling to these different states, doing these nationally syndicated culinary competitions and learning from Michelin starred chefs, these chefs impart that education to me. And it wasn't a matter of, well, I want to take it where the knowledge already is I want to take it back to where the knowledge could be. And Oklahoma is always, in my mind, a blank canvas for new and exciting creative ideas, concepts, or information, especially in the food industry. Our restaurant landscape has evolved tremendously in the past decade, even 5 years or so. We're getting national attention from James Beard. Same thing with Chef Jeff over Mater Lao and the Goro Concepts. He's getting national recognition for best new restaurant on 2 separate lists in the same week. We have such a beautiful thing here. And for me, being able to bring something back and to contribute to that, it just enriches my industry and in turn just makes me love what I do even more. So I feel like it's just important to be able to bring that back home. And Oklahoma just has a sense of community that we want to uplift each other when we have the opportunity. And I think that that's just one of the beautiful things about our state.
Let me, now that we got Dr. Danny back on and Laura, the legislature just appropriated a whole bunch of money because of the great confidence they have in the CareerTech program. Those are former colleagues of yours, Lee. And, I know that Speaker McCall and I've personally watched the work that Logan Phillips, Representative Phillips, has done on broadband. So we also know what our health outcomes are in Oklahoma and what the pandemic did to the industries. And, listen, our family, we've got so many great success stories with our kids in CareerTechs, one of them who's now an RN. And I just wonder how important, both Lee and Laura, for this, how important is, number one, the legislature's confidence in your mission? I just don't hear ever anything negative coming out of the legislature about CareerTech. That's not always the same. With Common Ed and higher ed, it's just what it is, right? Number two, how important is this broadband development, and especially with CareerTech? That's something that Logan Phillips, who's appeared on News 9 programming we've done in the past, saying, well, we've got to build the infrastructure to get the broadband out. So how important is it to have that sort of confidence from our lawmakers? And number two, how quickly can CareerTech help us to turn this bad broadband rating around?
Okay, well, if Laura doesn't mind, I'll start, then I'll pass it over to her. Well, having the confidence of the legislature is a powerful thing because at the agency, we're a state agency, so we certainly rely on state funding. And 85% of the funding that we get, we pass through to either high schools or tech centers and our skill centers and our adult basic literacy and even to industry. So having the confidence of the legislature is awesome. We don't take it lightly. We try to foster that relationship and we try to be responsive to what they need as well as what other people in the state need. I actually used to be with USDA starting in 2017. And, broadband deployment was important to us. But in the middle of March of 2020, it became paramount to the state, not only for education of our children, but also for e-commerce, for people to work from home. And COVID moved us in 3 months what it would have taken 10 years to get to if we hadn't had this epidemic or this pandemic. And so I'm sorry it happened because we did lose a lot of our citizens, not only in Oklahoma, but also in the United States. And that's very tragic. But the government has decided, especially with Representative Phillips' help, that doing broadband expansion is paramount. And so with lots of dollars coming to the state, we feel like the best way to increase this pipeline is to have Oklahomans do the work. And so we're very proud that they trust us with this, and we're looking forward to it. That being said, they also realize the need for truck drivers, and we've got ARPA dollars to increase truck driver training. And we have a statewide program in Drumright, Oklahoma, but we're expanding that to regional programs in the 4 quadrants of the state. So the backlog of people who want to be truck drivers, we can start to fill that backlog. The other thing that we got a nice healthy amount for, almost 9.6 million, I believe, I may not be exactly right, is to increase nursing in the state. And I'm going to turn it over to Laura at this time because she is the expert on this and what we plan to do as far as provide the people to fill the labor force in nursing that we so desperately need. Take it away, Laura.
Okay. One of when we heard about the ARPA funds, everyone, all of our nursing programs, of course, were excited about the opportunity. Everyone that received one of the ARPA grants chose to do something different with it. So some people chose to increase their simulation capacity. The Board of Nursing has said that up to 30% of your clinical experience can be done through simulation. So if you have the high fidelity mannequins, you run scenarios, and so it's very, very lifelike. Plus, this sounds terrible, but you can kill people that way, and it's okay because you didn't hurt a real person. You're learning your medication errors and things like that in a safe environment. So many people chose to expand their simulation infrastructure. We have some people that have expanded their program as far as we're going to double the number of LPNs that we put out. And that some of them worked on a partnership with higher ed saying, okay, together we're going to create this LPN to BSN pipeline, which stands for Bachelor's of Science in Nursing, I'm sorry. And so it just depends on the individual school and what their needs were. Finding instructors is one of our biggest challenges. Our instructors have the same qualifications as those in an associate degree of nursing program. And if they hold a national accreditation, then they're also required to have a master's in nursing. And that is, there's not that many masters of nursing programs in the state of Oklahoma. And and to do that, most of them are doing it when it's full-time employment. They're already employed and they're getting their master's in nursing. So it can be a real challenge. So like I said, some schools will be using it to increase specifically. We need more beds. We need more, consumable supplies, things like that. So everyone kind of chose their own angle to go at depending on what their individual needs were. But they did that through talking to their local business and industry and determining what can we support as well, because it's really easy to say, and I know that making your program larger, saying, hey, we'll take 10 more students, we'll take 20 more students in our college program or whatever. That's easy to do, but it's all the little things. It's the things you don't think about that can make it really more difficult to actually have them complete the program, sit for the test, and pass the test. So that's one thing that we're looking at. And I don't know, Lee, do you think I should talk about diploma?
As a pilot.
Okay, great. Well, I want to tell you guys just for a minute that we are working on trying to put together curriculum to offer RN training in our technology centers, specifically to LPNs who want to be an RN. Now, typically that's been done by them going through a 2 or 4 year program. 2-year, 4-year RN programs and a diploma RN all sit for the exact same exam. So regardless of what your background is. They all sit for the NLN RN exam. And so with that in mind, and what we do really well in CareerTech is we build licensed practical nurses. Yesterday afternoon, I had a group of about 10 nurses that were in, and they're working on curriculum. One of the great things about this pilot program that we're proposing is that it would require higher education partnership. So there will be some coursework that they would still need from a higher ed institution. So it's an opportunity, again, to focus on what we do well, but also expand it and hopefully get more registered nurses out to work in the field.
Hey, Laura, for our listeners, could you describe what LPN stands for and where
Sure.
they're at?
I'm so sorry. LPN is a licensed practical nurse. It is a level of designation that is between a long-term care nurse aide or any kind of patient care technician, which is an entry-level job, and a registered nurse. So it's it's your middle ground in nursing. In Oklahoma, we train, we have 200 instructors, if that tells you anything, and they typically have a 1-to-10 ratio for every instructor. There's about 10 students out there. So there are a number of students that go through licensed practical nurse. In other states, they're called licensed vocational nurses. So it's the same thing. And it's just something that Oklahoma, because of our tech center system, has always done really well. We have, I want to say it's like close to a 90% pass rate on our boards, which is pretty outstanding. That doesn't happen in every area. So yeah. So anyway, that's what a licensed practical nurse is. And the RN, it stands for registered nurse. And that would be the next level of nurse.
Well, I can tell you this. Go ahead, Lee. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I'm just the interim state director. I'm not an educator. I guess I'm playing one on TV right now, but it has been an absolute joy to be able to work with a system that has so many, the 5 arms that they put into our state and stuff, and see what they do. And Laura and Chef Gabriel, they're where the magic has occurred in this system. I have nothing to do with it, so I can beat my chest and be really proud of the vision that Francis Tuttle had so many years ago. And then Francis Tuttle, along with former Governor Dewey Bartlett, putting this system into place. Other states would love to do it, but it would be too costly now. It would be too hard to implement now. So Francis Tuttle, Dewey Bartlett had the vision so many years ago, so forward thinking, those pioneers in education on what it could be. And, we have miles to go before we sleep. And so I expect great things when the new director is appointed and CareerTech continues into what's next, innovative wise for us. I think you guys will be really excited what we're doing for the state.
By the way, hold your hand up if you can tell me what number Republican Governor Dewey Bartlett was.
Oh gosh, what number are we on now?
1?
No.
No.
All right. Dewey Bartlett was
the second. He was only the second Republican governor that we had in the state. I'd have to do the math, but I don't know. Let's say he was number 15.
In terms of being a Republican governor?
No, he was number 2 as Republican governor. He's only the second Republican we had in the state.
And everybody knows who number 1 was, right?
Yes, Henry Bellman.
Henry Bellman.
And I have to say this out of respect for Dewey Bartlett. I absolutely loved. I was young, and he promoted Oklahoma as Okies, and we had little pins. And I would love to find mine in the bottom of a jewelry box somewhere. But Okie stood for something, and we'd have to go back in the annals of history to find out. And I was always sad when future governor says, we're not just okay, we're great. And we are great, But I really liked the marketing campaign that Governor Bartlett did with his little Oakley pens when I was much younger.
Governor Bartlett was the first governor the Constitution allowed to run for a second term.
Yeah,
And
that is
believe
correct.
what happened.
Well, we did it. I don't know why it happened. I was young, Scott. Maybe you were doing good.
You were
then.
just a child.
I
That's
was
all I
like,
can tell you.
I
Because I've
was
just been
like in
around there.
pre-K.
Dewey
No.
Bartlett lost to David Hall.
That's right.
So the first governor who actually ran to succeed himself was George Nye and won.
Oh, wow.
How about that for a trivia?
I like it. I like it.
So very much.
I wasn't a good history student. I liked math and science. And now I'm going back, and history is just so fascinating. And so I'll have to read up on my Oklahoma history a little bit.
Well, math and science was not my strong point. I could remember the history part of it.
Well,
Hey,
it
I'd like to
takes
ask
a
one
village.
question of Chef Lewis before we get out of here, because it is we're 55 minutes. We're not that far away from Beat Texas time at 2:30. Before COVID, Chef Gabriel, there was at Francis Tuttle, there was a Mark Dunham, who's a friend of mine who ran the program many years ago. Before there was a restaurant there, people could come out and a baking program. Some of the best pies in the world. People would go. I think I had a couple of dinners out there, but that was way before COVID. In terms of the Francis Tuttle program, by the way, for those of you who know Mark Dunham, his wife is Jenny Townley Dunham. And for those of you who are as old as me and at least too young to remember this, but the greatest eggnog in the history of Oklahoma was Townley's eggnog. And it would start to pop out this time of year, okay? And Jenny Townley Dunham, Mark Dunham told me, has the recipe. So any of you who want to help me beat up Mark Dunham to put that recipe out so we could do that Townley's.
When do we start? I'm out. I'm down for that. Let's go.
Okay,
for
we
it.
do
I
too.
love a good eggnog.
So Chef Gabriel, plans for not only for Francis Tuttle's culinary program, but doing those programs that a lot of people got to sample and watch these students bake their pies and create their dinners. It was really fascinating. It just seems like forever ago.
Yeah, definitely. Some of my favorite memories from Francis Tuttle were they were very kind of special event type of things. I know we had a point where we were on rotation to stock up the baking cabinet up front to be able to sell to the public. Every year we would bake hundreds of apple pies. Every station had a rotation of, you're over here cutting apples, y'all are assembling pie crust, you're mixing filling, you're putting top crust. And then we're just kind of making this efficient machine and putting out hundreds upon hundreds of pies. And then we would also have this beautiful program. And Chef Mark was very, very engaged with that, of bringing in notable chefs to do pop-ups in District 21 and then having the students help do all the prep so that we had actual experience with renowned chefs. And it was one of my, I think, most memorable experiences was being able to go into District 21's kitchen and prep with Rick Bayless. And it was just fantastic, great energy. And he is just phenomenal in his own right. But Francis Tuttle has, still trying to do those kind of innovative things for their students. They even invite industry professionals to just come in and peek through the windows and see how these students engage with the curriculum and how they are, working there. They may be doing chocolate work one day. They may be doing stocks and sauces. They may be learning how to make something out of nothing with scraps, or, having a mystery box day, which is kind of my favorite thing for MasterChef reasons. But they do these engaging concepts and invite people to really see what these students, these kids, these industry professionals are soon to be, what they're capable of, and what the next generation of the workforce looks like and what they're putting forth. And it's absolutely phenomenal. I was talking to Dr. Sanders, who's the now director of the culinary program there, about trying to bring in some of my contacts from MasterChef and the TV circuit, the private side, and showing them and engaging with them that way, because it's becoming so popular for people to cook on TikTok and Instagram, and it's becoming a tool of business to be able to market that way as well. From the chefs of executive chefs of their restaurants having to make videos to entice people to come through the door. And so I figured, why not try to take that concept and apply it? And they were more than willing to say, let's see what we can do. Like, let's get into it. Let's see what we can do to provide the students that kind of information and education.
There's nothing but a great future out there. Okay. The great students and under the leadership of Chef Lewis and Laura Morris with Health Careers Education at CareerTech. We thank you for everything that you're doing. By the way, I mean, the nursing industry, those folks were worn smooth. Okay. I mean, the pandemic wore them out. They had the stories you've heard from nurses trying to get through the pandemic. It's like war zone. Okay. And I appreciate the dedication of the legislature, the pro tem, the speaker, John Eccles, talking every week about what we wanted to do to help with workforce development, specifically in the area of healthcare. And looks like they put their money where the mouth is.
I agree. And we're very thankful for that, because we can't do what we do unless we have some support, background, some financial backing. So thank you very much.
Laura Morris, Gabriel Lewis, Chef Gabriel Lewis, thanks for being with us.
Thank you. We appreciate the time.
Thank you. By the way, beat Texas.
Yeah. Go Pokes.
All right. Goodbye now. Bye. All right, Ryan Welton. Hey, that was fun.
That was a lot of fun. I'm now hungry. And by the way, we didn't get to ask Chef Gabriel about this. I asked him what his specialties were. And for a long time, it had been Asian fusion, but now he's getting back to his roots and going into modern Southern cooking, which makes me want to go to Florence's. I've just, I haven't eaten yet this morning. Just really hungry.
Yeah. You and I've been to Florence's, right?
You bet. We sure have. And it's fantastic.
It's a wonderful, wonderful food. Okay. If you happen to look out the door, if you've been outside this morning, if you haven't had a haircut, it's going to be all messed up. All right. It's just unbelievable. And last week we were talking severe weather over the weekend, but Storm Tracker is going to be out watching. Are we talking about wildfire danger right now?
Right. So we have a priority system in-house for both News on 6 and News 9, P1, P2, P3. P3 is just sort of like be weather aware, and it is be weather aware for wildfire danger, especially today. I heard Chief Meteorologist David Payne say last night, if you don't need to burn today, don't. It's just not a good day for it. But the weather pattern, as it often does in autumn, is going to be a changing Sunday night into Monday with rain. I don't know that there's any severe weather necessarily anticipated, but while we'll be in the 80s this weekend, it'll be back to the 60s come Monday. So there are a lot of changes afoot. But yeah, if you walk out right now, the wind is a howling.
All right, so be careful. It's going to be interesting to see how the weather impacts that game in Stillwater at 2:30.
Right.
Well, thanks for all of y'all who have been with us since the start of this 12-part series, Beyond the Bell, brought to you by Every Kid Counts Oklahoma. And it's been fun. And we've got an election coming up. We'll see a lot of the things that we talked about are going to be issues. They're going to be taken up by the legislature, by whoever the next governor is going to be. Education is a big part of the governor's race. And we've got quite a bit of action going on in the next 2.5 weeks or so. Monday night, we'll be back with our political panel. That'll be 7:00. We'll do that for the next 2 Monday nights. And of course, we saw a hot seat this morning that, by the way, there was an RSV outbreak. One of our Fab 4 docs was on this morning with hot seat, Dr. Sublett, talking about RSV. Just doesn't impact youngins, which it does. Also older folks. So take a look at that at news9.com/yourvote counts is where that will be. And as a personal note, a great thank you to Ryan Welton, the digital director at News 9 News on 6, for behind the scenes and in front of the camera putting this one on. Ryan?
It's been a lot of fun. It's been a learning experience. I've learned a lot, and I'm a grad student myself right now. So this is all impactful to me on a personal note. We tell everybody every week, we'll get this out to the website, the news app, and our streaming app. If you don't have a Roku device, if you don't have an Apple TV, if you don't have an Amazon Fire Stick, they're not expensive. And it is the level up. It is the new era, the new way to watch television. Basically an iPhone on your TV. All
right. Well, that's it. I guess go Cowboys for real. And on behalf of Ryan Welton, go Sun Devils, right?
Go Sun Devils. Actually, go Bruins today. My family, we're all Bruins here. They're playing the Oregon Ducks behind me there.
Oh, Oregon, the home of Nike. Yeah.
Nice.
Go Bruins. Okay. So, all right. Thanks, everyone. Go Pokes. We'll see you again real soon.